Buying a home can be scary and sometimes frustrating, but all of that can go away with the right realtor. And that's where Sean Shackleton with the Shackleton Group is here for you. Sean has over 25 years experience in real estate. She's here to get you what you want and won't settle for less. She's experienced, knowledgeable, and understands this market, which these days is always changing. Take the stress out of your next home purchase by calling Sean at 480-734-7277. You can also find her at theshackletongroup.com. Education has always been at the center of Matt Pittinsky's life, with both parents working in education. Matt earned his master's in education from Harvard, followed by a PhD in sociology of education from the Teachers College at Columbia University. While working to found and develop several education technology startups, Matt has also taught and served as a tenure track professor at ASU, where he remains as a visiting scholar. Matt and his wife, Julie, who's also a Phoenix native, have 3 children who all went to SUSD schools. 2 are now in the middle school, 1 in high school, and 1 at Brophy. Matt represents families who have made different choices for different children at different stages of their education and is running to help improve SUSD for all families. So thank you so much for being here, Matt. I'm excited for the community to learn about you. First question is, what are you going to do to help fix our enrollment issues here in SUSD?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for having me. So let's start with the fact that we do actually have an enrollment issue. So I'm glad you asked the question. If you went back to 2010 and asked the question, what percentage of families with school-aged children sent their kids to Scottsdale? The answer would be about 70%. So 70% of the families in our district converted into enrollments in our district. Today, that number is down to 56%. That is a stark change. Mm-hmm. And you can map the moments when that happened. There was a big moment around COVID. There was also a big moment when our budget override did not pass, and families started to think differently about something we take for granted, which is the community's support for our public schools. So we have, at the same time as that declining percentage attending Scottsdale schools, we also have a demographic challenge that Scottsdale has become more expensive to live in. And as a result, we have fewer families with young children. We have more apartment buildings, different kinds of dwellings. So we're dealing with a double challenge. We're dealing with fewer families with children in Scottsdale. And on top of that, we're dealing with the percentage of those families who end up choosing Scottsdale schools. I think the answer is to start by building trust in our schools. We have great schools. We have high schools where students are progressing on to the best colleges in the country. We have high school graduates who are graduating with industry credentials that allow them to be immediately productive inside of our economy and our community. We have so many things to celebrate in our schools, and I think it starts with a school board that looks for the opportunities to celebrate what's going to attract families to our schools, as well as having a clear-eyed view of where we need to make improvements and working with the superintendent constructively to build our long-term plan around adjusting those areas, like proficiency in math and English and other challenges that we need to work on.
One of the things that goes along with student enrollment is teacher retention. How would you like to see more recruitment, mentorship for our teachers, working with our local universities and schools here in the state to get more teachers to stay here and work here?
Well, I love the way that you focused on retention, because the place to start is with the teachers that you have. Mm-hmm. It's so much more expensive and so much more challenging to recruit new teachers. We have great teachers. We want to continue to reward them. Part of it is funding and teacher salaries. Unfortunately, Arizona pays our teachers towards the lower end if you were to list all the states in the District of Columbia. That starts at the state level in terms of the amount of funding. So unfortunately, the school board is a little bit limited there. But then we do have an opportunity in how we set the priorities with the school budget that we do have responsibility for, to make sure that we are focused on teachers at the center of the classroom and the teaching and learning process. It continues with creating an environment in which teachers feel safe and secure. I don't just mean physically, of course, that's critically important, but we have had 14 superintendents in the 13 years preceding our current leader. 14 superintendents. I built 2 companies. I can tell you as a CEO that no organization can be successful with that level of turnover. And so if you're a teacher and you wonder whether something you say in the classroom is going to all of a sudden be mentioned in the open comments at the board, and a board member is going to start an inquisition into what's happening inside of your classroom. If you're a teacher who sees that level of constant change and turnover, it creates an environment of instability and makes you wonder whether you're valued as a teacher and whether the district is stable and focused on the long-term improvement that we need as you're thinking about kind of where do you pursue your career. So I think some of it is funding, but I think some of it is also quality of life. And it starts with the top and the school board creating a tone that we value our teachers and we support our school leaders, and we're focused on stability to build over the long term.
Our graduation rates are very high, but we still have low test scores. Some of that has been from COVID. We are now past that moment, and I understand that the lacking of education from years ago can follow you through. But what are we going to do to make that more equal with our high graduation rates, and to get our test scores to rise more to the national level?
Yeah, I think it's a great question and an opportunity to do what I talked about earlier, which is to celebrate what's working and then also be clear-eyed on where we need to improve. So what's working? We have the graduation rate that you talked about. And then when you look at the colleges that students are going to, they are the best colleges in the country. And add to that, of course, not every student is going on to college. They can be going into the workforce. We've done a lot of innovative things around technical and vocational education that allows people to graduate with a credential and be immediately relevant to the economy. I built a business here in Scottsdale. I've hired SUSD graduates, and so I recognize that there's more than one pathway. But underneath that are our proficiency scores, and they are not where we need them to be. Both in English and math, we're looking at proficiency that's less than 60%, and we need to improve that. You hit a really important point in your question, which is some of this is cumulative. So what we're dealing with in 7th or 8th or 9th grade math, in many ways, some of the seeds of that were planted in 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade. So this notion that the disruption created by COVID is somehow a moment in time, I think misses in the way that math builds and language builds over time. So our responsibility is first to make it a priority, and I'm pleased to see the board and the district leadership narrowing the number of priorities that are part of our big goals and focusing on a couple of really critical ones, and math proficiency is one. Second, again, to make sure resources are going to the classroom and the supplemental learning resources that are going to make a difference. We also have to be patient. We have to set measurable, achievable goals for improvement. What we shouldn't do is all of a sudden wake up one day, look at the proficiency scores, say, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Let's fire the superintendent and fire X number of teachers or school leaders. To me, that shows a lack of sophistication in really diving in to responsibly understand what's driving this. We are the 4th best in the state, so we can feel good about that, but and at the same time recognize we're not where we need to be in terms of making sure that every student graduates proficient in English and math.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question is how do we make our schools more on the same level playing field, throughout the district?
It's a great question. We have a really large district geographically, and it's a little confusing. So just to correct one thing in your introduction, my wife grew up here. I grew up in New York. And so in New York, like the name of the town is the name of your school district.
Your boroughs and neighborhoods.
Yeah, it's all very simple. So I grew up in Baldwin and I went to Baldwin School District. Here you can live in PV but go to Scottsdale, or live in Scottsdale and go to PV and so on. We have this very broad geographic district. People think of Scottsdale as affluent. I think that's the first thing that jumps to mind. And we do. We have pockets of wealth. We also have pockets of very concerning poverty that we have to recognize. And the role of our schools in the lives of family with poverty is different, obviously. And something that we may not always think about is there can be as much variation or difference in the educational experience of a student within a high school or within an elementary school as there is across them. Because you might be in an IB program and I'm in a regular program. Your child might be in the gifted program. My child might not be. So we have to think about ensuring equal opportunity for education and tracking our outcomes, both at the school level, because schools do correlate a little bit with socioeconomic status of families. But we also have to look at it within school in terms of the quality of education that different students are getting, depending on the different SUSD programs that they're participating in.
What is something that the current school board is doing right that you would like to continue to work on?
That's a good question, because unfortunately, when I think of our current school board, I think more about dysfunction than function. So I love that you're pushing me to practice what I just preached and identify the good. And,
you said it, not me.
yeah, and build on it. I mean, my favorite part of the board meeting is the beginning, because at the beginning of the board meeting is when we celebrate what is happening inside of our school district. So at the most recent board meeting, 2 boys, I think aged 11 or so or 12, literally saved someone's life, and we had an opportunity to celebrate that. Teachers in a school, that received a national recognition. That role of the board in being a place where we celebrate the greatness that's happening inside of our district, because people do look up to the board. They get excited for the meeting. It means something. Also, the board as a place where our young people can see democracy in action, can come and hear people voice their concerns and see elected official. Those are the kinds of things that I celebrate. At the same time, my honest kind of answer is the first thing that came to mind are the ways in which we need to make the board more functional to represent our community and make our schools as successful as they can be.
Well, that leads me to my next question is, how do you plan to change the climate of the board when y'all are working with each other?
Yeah, it starts with the way that I'm running. So everyone gets to vote for 3 out of 6, but you'll notice that we generally are running as slates or teams. You won't see us on the ballot that way. So in my case, I'm running with Mike Sharkey and Donna Lewis. And so our clever little mnemonic is SLP for SUSD. That's what we want people to remember, is SLP for SUSD. And that means that we'll come onto the board, if we're all fortunate to be elected, already with a working relationship and a set of values and a kind of a view of where we want to take things. And then obviously want to work well with the 2 folks that are continuing on. But it continues, and I think it really starts with an understanding of the role of the board. The board is not there to micromanage the district. It is not there for individual families to take their particular political views, their particular moral or religious views, and start to represent that in the books that are in our library, the curriculum that is in our classroom. The board is there to represent the whole community, and we do that by hiring the superintendent and holding the superintendent accountable. We do it by setting policy and then respecting that policy as the way that we ultimately get to the answer of what books are in the library or what curriculum our teachers are teaching. And finally, to be great stewards of taxpayer dollars and the budget. That's the role of the board. I would add a 4th, which is to kind of help promote and represent the district, because we do work in a marketplace where people have other choices. So there's a little bit of a sales and marketing job that I think the board should have as well. So it starts with that understanding. If we have that understanding, then I think we can work much more constructively together, because we know the guardrails, we know the boundaries between what a superintendent does and what the board does. And I think that's critical and something that unfortunately we've lost a little bit of our way on.
I have about 2.5 minutes left, and I got 2 more questions for you. This is an unpaid full-time position. So this kind of goes with number 4, which you were just talking about, the marketing aspect. What are you going to do to be more active in this community about the board, get involved with the schools rather than just being a part of a board and going to the meetings and reading all the stuff that you were required to learn?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's part of the responsibility of the board. And I would start with, I think I'm already doing that. I was already involved in site councils. I'm involved in scouting and talk about Scottsdale schools in that context. I built a business here in Scottsdale, and so I spent a lot of time with the business community. I've worked to recruit families to work for my company to Scottsdale, and then they ask about the Scottsdale schools. So I'm representing it as an employer to my employees, but I also talk to other business leaders and try to enlist them in being able to tell the positive story of Scottsdale schools. So it's by getting out, not just living in the school communities that my kids have participated or are participating in, but getting involved in other school communities all the way up to, what I do as a business leader in Scottsdale.
Last question. What is your favorite thing about the Scottsdale Unified School District?
The teachers. It's just each one of us can immediately go to that teacher who we became best friends with. There's a social group that my wife is still part of that's named after the kindergarten teacher that we kind of met each other through, because that's what schools are, right? Mm-hmm. They're the fabric of our community. So I would start with our teachers. I'm a little bit of a theater nerd, so I love the quality of our arts and our theater programs, but it would start with our teachers.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Best of luck in the upcoming election. Please go vote. And if you want to find out more information about Matt, please go to Pittinsky for SUSD, and that's Pittinsky, the number 4 SUSD.com. Again, this is in the description of this episode. Go check it out on YouTube, and you get to watch Matt during this interview as well. Best of luck, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
All right, stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to have Donna Lewis at the table. Donna Lewis is the proud mother of 3 sons who are all educated in Arizona public schools. After attending NAU for her undergraduate degree, Donna obtained her master's at the University of Arizona, followed by a doctorate from George Washington University in educational leadership. Donna began her career in education as a classroom teacher and gifted specialist, followed by years spent as a site administrator, serving as principal for elementary, middle, and high schools. Donna's leadership ability was sought by Cave Creek Unified School District and Creighton Unified School District, where she served as both assistant superintendent and superintendent. Donna was also named the 2021 Arizona's National Superintendent of the Year. So Donna, I'm going to start with you. What are your ideas to help fix enrollment here at SUSD?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's just a terrific delight to be here and to get to talk about my favorite subject, which is public schools. And I wouldn't start with the assumption fix is the right word. Yes, we have continued development, ongoing systemic improvements to make, and we really need to lean in and generate a culture of belief and support among our neighborhoods, our parents, and our teachers, so that we all are proud of what our kids are doing and honoring what our kids are doing. And if we could just begin to make the conversation about a lot of what's going right, then we can replicate that success. So I'm a success breeds success believer. Now, are there problems? Absolutely. Will there always be problems? Absolutely. So the fixed notion of fixing feels a little finite to me. And I want to start by saying we want to be able to have a culture of talking about our disagreements on how to approach solutions to complex and messy issues, because people are, complex and messy. We see things differently.
Yeah.
So if we can have a conversation about how to address identifying problems, prioritizing problems, aligning our budgets to those problems, then we can begin to move towards solutions that will seek other solutions that will seek other solutions.
I think one of those to go along with that is, hiring teachers, the right kind of teachers, and retention of teachers. So when it comes to recruitment, mentorship, working with the local universities here we have in our state, how would you like to get those right teachers for our students and working with our, local universities, as well as keeping teachers here in our district?
We have a national crisis going on right now. It's in Scottsdale, it's in Arizona, and it's across the country. And we have not been super supportive and encouraging of people choosing the profession by virtue of their working conditions and their pay. So we have some work to do there. That's for retention of students. We used to keep teachers 10, 20 years. Master teachers evolved over time. And so we're losing that by the nature of the fact that teachers who do enter our profession are leaving in 3 to 5 years. And we've just got to find a way to keep them excited and help honor and celebrate and recognize the complexity of the job. In terms of recruitment, I know we've tried a variety of creative approaches to go to different universities around the country, where we've said, hey, come to the sunshine, get out of the snow and teach in Scottsdale. So we've done a lot of recruitment that way. We have, I think, close to 70,000 certified teachers. So there is not a teacher shortage. There's actually plenty of teachers. They just need to want to choose to teach again.
I'm going to interrupt just because I do have one question. That 70,000, do you mean that where is that number nationally? Locally?
It's in the state of Arizona.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm not sure if that's the exact number, so forgive me if my numbers are off, but we got lots of certified. We've got enough certified teachers in the state of Arizona who aren't choosing to teach.
Okay.
So the shortage is real. And again, it goes back to working conditions and pay. But that emotional support and that feeling of being mission driven and feeling great satisfaction that you're making a difference in the lives of children, that's what we need to honor. I mean, this is the profession that creates all the professions, other professions of our world and society.
When it comes to our graduation rates, there's a kind of a difference between having a high graduation rate, but our test scores are still kind of low. We are past the COVID years. Yes, some of that influences, your ability down the road, but how are we going to get those to be more equal level with our graduation rates and our test scores here in SUSD?
Well, when you look at passage rates, and you compare Scottsdale Unified School District to like districts of size and economy, we are fourth best in the state. Not good enough, but it's not a failing district. And the struggles that we have with students who have so many different needs. I mean, we educate our special education students. We educate students with language barriers. Our doors are open to everyone. So those test scores on the aggregate are going to even out a little bit. Is there work to do? Yes. And I think right now we're really honing in on mathematics, because our foundation of mathematics and even understanding the integer of one and place value and number concepts is a real strength that we need to build in our younger years to make sure that our kids then do the college work ready for the university. I don't know if I went too far, but we've got lots of training and support we can provide our young teachers and our veteran teachers on how to do a tighter, better job in math and in the English language arts area.
What do you think is something that the current board is doing right that you would like to continue to work on with them?
Well, I think they're beginning to examine the demographic changes in our enrollment, which has to do somewhat with the aging of our population and the cost of housing.
Right.
And so they're starting to examine the complexity of our enrollment. And I think we need to repurpose perhaps some of our facilities and look at boundaries that terrible topic, nobody wants to talk about it, but we need to lean in a little bit to talk about how do we help make sure our schools are maximized so we can maximize the efficiency of our resources. So that's one of the things I'm proud of us being at the beginning stages of, but we need to dig in deeper on that one.
That kind of leads me to my next question is how do we get our schools to be on a more equal level playing ground, with that and when it comes to the districting of our schools?
Well, the terrible conversation is about boundaries, and we can motivate schools to be signature schools to help attract students from out of district. Where I was a superintendent before, we had a school down to 185 kids, and now that school is up to 610. And the way that happened was we attracted it through a specialized program. In that case, it was dual language immersion, and that was an attraction to that setting. And we pulled kids from surrounding districts, including this one, that wanted a dual language immersion program. And they just created this sense of community, even though it wasn't a neighborhood school. So that's an example of how you can grow interest again in a place that seems to be having severe declining enrollment.
How are you going to change the climate within the school board to continue to work together to make the changes that need to be made for our students?
Well, I think that the five of us are really only one body. We're not five separate individuals. We are a body that oversees the culture of policy development, and we have oversight over the budget. And together we can come to some agreements if we're willing to be vulnerable together on our disagreements. And maybe we do, maybe we don't have so many. I have found that when I've unpacked people's perceptions that they disagree, that they're more 80% on the same page than not. And if we could just hone in on what we have in common, we will do a better job together as a body called the school board. I would love for us to come up with some ethical agreements on the ways in which we want to work and communicate with one another while we honor open meeting law, and while we promote the notion of looking at the glass half full and examining the good, the bad, and the ugly, in a way that's safe for everyone without it being blame or shame oriented. So I think those are huge shifts that we can make, or steps in the direction of shifts we can make as a board.
This is an unpaid, full-time position that is a lot of work. What are you going to do to be more active in the community to bring more awareness to the school board in that sense?
I'll say yes to everything. That's a fault of mine. I'm working on the boundaries. But to me, the coffees that we have around the kitchen tables are a great way to hear. I heard just the other day people who were talking about our counseling program and really nurturing the Ivy League admissions. I didn't have that insight until I had that kitchen table conversation. I have just recently attended some of the civic organizations and heard what their thoughts and perceptions are as business leaders who want to hire our students. And we've got a study out right now that shows the return on investment is 5 to 1. So for every dollar that we put into our students, we get 5 back on their citizenship, as a part of the Scottsdale society. So if we could just begin these dialogues, again, kitchen table or civic organizations or at the dais when public comments are allowed, there's a variety of ways we can keep our conversation alive.
What is your favorite thing about Scottsdale Unified School District?
To the children, of course, and the students and our National Merit Scholars and the awards that we win and the recognitions that we get. We so often, can see that sliver of what's wrong and hone in on that, but we've got to keep celebrating what our kids are doing right. We had 2 kids the other day that saved a person's life, and they were recognized by our safety authorities for doing the right thing, and they were just little guys. So proud of them. Just singular celebrations that we can keep making the highlight. Parents who give and give and give and lead and lead and lead in the smallest but most intimate ways are the things that make our schools better. So I would love to just be a part of every chance we can talking about the part of the school that's going so well.
We have about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to leave the rest of it to you. Why should Scottsdale vote for Donna Lewis for Scottsdale Unified School District?
Well, I really hope to be a part of a bigger conversation. I hope to be a part of a healthy, productive board. I do, for 40 years of experience, I do happen to understand the complexities of the budget. I do understand the complexities of the statutes that Arizona law limits us on what we can and can't do with our funding. I do understand the bond and override process and how that does help or enhance the budget for our schools. I do understand the cost of our human resources. So I have a quick capacity to study the budget. I am knowledgeable about Arizona's policies for schools. So that I can hit the ground running, I can say that. And I would want very much to be a part with the other 4 people, whoever we are, to shape a shared dialogue of respect and common sense and not to be dagger throwing or grenade throwing of one another's character, but to stay issues oriented. And that's what I would hope to bring is a maturity and a protocol of common sense.
Well, best of luck, Donna, to you in the upcoming elections. To learn more about her priorities and know more about Donna Lewis, please go visit lewis4susd.com. That's LEWIS, the number 4, susd.com. You can also check the description of this episode, and the link is right there for you to click on. And if you're not watching this episode on YouTube, go check it out, and you can get to meet Donna as well. Donna, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck on your election.
Thank you so much for the time. Great to meet you.
Mike Sharkey earned his undergraduate degree in mathematics from Lafayette College before obtaining a master's in business administration from the University of Arizona. He spent his career in higher education and technology. As an entrepreneur, he founded a higher education predictive analytics company, had to slow down on that one, that he later sold to a large software company. Mike is currently a full-time at ASU as an executive director of data and analysis for ASU Enterprise Technology. Mike and his wife Jessica raised their twin daughters here in SUSD schools, where both girls earned merit-driven scholarships. For 8 years, Mike has taken pride in mentoring students on the Chaparral High School robotics team and developing their interests in STEM careers. Mike, thank you so much for being here today. We'll go ahead and get started. What are you going to do to help fix the enrollment issues here in SUSD?
Sure. For fixing the enrollment issues, the biggest thing is to make sure that SUSD is the school of choice for parents. So there's lots of pieces in that. We want to make sure our academic outcomes are as good as they can be. We want to make sure we're providing students a safe environment for their learning. The main thing that we can control is we don't want to have any unforced errors. We don't want to create any issues of our own. We don't want to have any infighting. The board can do more to hurt itself than it can to help itself. And so I see myself as a problem solver. And so bring the skills that I have to come to the board and say, look, we've got problems. We're a great district. There's things we can improve upon. What can I do to help improve those so that when a parent moves here, has a child, is looking at what they want to do with their child's education, they say, yeah, SUSD is my top choice.
Part of that, school enrollment has to do with teacher retainment. So we have an issue with teacher retainment, recruitment, mentorship, working with local universities. With all of those combined, how are you going to keep our teachers here in Scottsdale?
Sure. So you're absolutely right. Teachers are the heart of what we do in education. As a parent, I can tell you stories of the amazing teachers we had with our kids as they went through SUSD. And so from my standpoint, there's a financial piece. So unfortunately, the finances of schools is more at the state level than it is at the district level. But whatever we can do to help drive dollars towards our teachers to pay them what they deserve. I'm from the East Coast originally, and I'm used to states giving more funding to teachers. I love what I've been here in Arizona for 24 years, but one thing I don't like is I don't think our state values education the way I see it in other areas. So not being able to affect that. When we look at problems that come up in the district, I want teacher input on what they're seeing. We've done a great job of getting student input through our superintendent. We get parent input, as we absolutely should, and to get teacher input too, because they're there every day and they see what's going on, and I want to make sure we have that. Myself and Donna Lewis and Matt Pittinsky, we are endorsed by the teachers, by the Scottsdale Education Association, so we've already started a great relationship, and I want to continue that with the teachers.
Part of that, all of those teachers' enrollment, our graduation rates, they are high, but our test scores are low. There's a disproportionate around there. How are we going to work with our test scores to rise them up to reach our graduation rate levels as well as the national average? And I kind of brought this up with the other candidates in the sense that I understand COVID had an effect on that. We are past that. How are we going to continue to get over the hump of what we lost 4 or 5 years ago to get to where we need to be today?
Sure. Focusing on test scores is obviously the most quantifiable way that we can measure outcomes of our students. My background as a data analyst, I'm bringing a lot to the table. I've seen during this campaign period, I've seen people throwing numbers around and using them in and of themselves as a way to kind of vilify, look, this number is low, therefore you must be bad. There's a lot to unpack there. As you start to look at the numbers, what I like is what the district is already doing. The district presented their annual goals to the board in the previous 2 meetings. And of the top goal, the number one thing is increasing the math passing rate test scores by 3 percentage points. And what that does is a couple things. One, it focuses energy. Improving math scores by 3 percentage points is not going to solve all of our problems. But what it does is allow us to say, look, we're going to focus on this and make a difference. And everyone's going to row in the same direction and work to fix that. And by showing that improvement, that says, look, we can do this. That's great because there are lots of things that need to be addressed. And I don't want to say that fixing 3 points in a math test score is going to solve all the problems. But what it will do is show that we can make a difference. So I really commend the current administration for focusing on that as an outcome, and the board is approving those as goals. And what I'm going to do is help where I can. Again, data analysis. We're doing cohort analysis, which means we're going to be tracking students from year to year. A second grade goes to third grade, goes to fourth, as opposed to comparing second graders to second graders to second graders, because things change, environments change. And so doing cohort analysis will do a much better job of letting us identify where the problems might be that we can fix.
You kind of talked about how your environment affects, test scores and stuff like that. How do we help make our schools more of an even level playing field for our kids?
So depends what you mean by even playing field.
I understand how districts work and, communities, there are more affluent communities throughout and there are not. And I understand that's how all cities work throughout the nation. But it's not fair to our kids. So how do we help make schools more even level for our students to be able to learn at the same capacity?
Okay, that's great. And what I like about what we have in Scottsdale is we are a diverse district, right? If you look from north to south, from east to west, there's differences. The folks down in the Coronado community, I think in Coronado community, you've got 87% of students on free and reduced lunches. It's a large number. When, from my observation of going to board meetings this entire year and kind of, immersing myself in what's going on, we don't discriminate and say, hey, here's the plan. This is going to work better for most of the schools. Hey, it's not going to work great for that community because there's differences. That is not how we operate. So I don't see that Scottsdale in any way is contributing towards differences.
Okay.
The other way, I would say we actually recognize those differences. And yes, there's always going to be differences based on, parents and time and things that can be contributed. But from an administration level, I don't see that at all. And I'm happy about that. I want that to be part of what we do.
Very nice. What is something that the current board is doing right and that you would like to continue to work on?
So the board is doing, one of the things that they're supposed to do is looking into finances and purchasing and asking questions. If you think about board members, they are unpaid and they don't have any qualifications.
That'll be my next question, but we'll get to that next.
You got it. So expecting that board members can understand all the intricacies of contracts and policies and purchasing is a pretty high bar. And so there's been good questions being asked about contracts and prices and where they come from. I give tremendous props to the finance team and the administration. The amount of detail they put into it, explaining what's going on and why is great. So the fact that the board is asking those questions, in my mind, they're doing their job. And I think that's a very fair statement.
Very nice. The climate within the board is not always pleasant. So how are you going to change that if you become elected?
So I've always been coming from a collaborative open space. I've reached out to two of the other folks that are running for their position to kind of ask them. I said, hey, I can't really articulate what we have in common or in different. They didn't choose to meet with me, which I wish they did. I've met with one of the board members who's currently on the board. Our kids were in school at the same time together. When I started to think about running, the first thing I did was meet with her, saying, what's going on and how can I be working? So I've already been demonstrating collaborative spirit. The other thing that I'll bring is I tend to be a good problem solver from the standpoint of let's break down the problem. What are we trying to solve here? And so yes, the climate has been testy on the board. I've been seeing that firsthand. As I sit there in the audience taking notes, I say to myself, I don't think everyone agrees on what the problem we're trying to solve here is. Either it's not a real problem and it's someone that has, a specific reason for bringing it to the table, or it is truly a problem, but I don't think everyone is on the same page. And that's not great, because if you don't all agree what you're trying to solve, you're never going to get to a solution for it. So being much more clear on the analysis of and the communication of what is this thing we're trying to address, make sure we're all doing the same thing, because if you're not, it's going to go nowhere.
Very nice. Back to what you were just saying earlier, this is an unpaid position. It is a full-time position as far as the extra hours you'll be putting in. So what are you going to do, Mike, to be active in the community so people know who our school board members are, how they're participating, and how they're making our community and schools better?
So making myself available through the communication channels that exist. We have a parent connect way for parents to be able to communicate with board members. Board members, I love hearing when the board members talk about, oh, I went to this school play or I went to this performance. I've been a mentor on the robotics team going on 9 years now. And so in the springtime, I'm spending a couple hours on a Thursday and 6 hours on a Saturday, with the kids and doing it. I enjoy doing that. My wife and I are at the empty nest phase of our parenthood. And so while I do have a full-time job, I'm also fully committed to this. And, I definitely want to be part and continue to be part of understanding the audiences. That is students, parents, administrators, and teachers.
I love that. What is your favorite thing about the Scottsdale Unified School District?
I'm biased. I got to go with the robotics clubs. I've been doing this for 13 years now, 9 with the high school, and another 4 years, with my kids and some of their friends. And I was knocking on doors on Saturday, and I was at a family's house, and turns out they have a middle schooler at Mountainside who's going into robotics. And I'm at the board meeting, and I see the Saguaro robotics team getting award for something they did. It is such a joyful thing to see not only just the STEM education. It's not all about hardware and engineering. I work with these kids on project management and communication and strategy. I've got kids that were on the team at Chaparral who are now at ASU, and they work with me as a student worker, or I go have lunch with them once a semester. And just to see that full life cycle, it just brings nothing but joy to my heart.
We have about 3.5 minutes left. I'm going to leave the floor to you, open mic. Why should we vote for Mike Sharkey for Scottsdale Unified School District Board?
The answer is you should vote for Mike Sharkey, Donna Lewis, and Matt Pittinsky, because we are absolutely the most experienced educational professionals running for Scottsdale School Board. Not just in this cycle. We've talked to folks that have been involved in the school boards for a long time and have said you're absolutely the 3 most overqualified professionals we have had running for school board. We have managed budgets. We have analyzed academic data. We have been superintendents. We have been teachers. There is no role that if you look at what the board does, there's no role we haven't covered. What does the board do? They do 3 things. They hire and fire the superintendent, they approve the financials, and they make high-level decisions on policy. Multiple ones of us have done those 3 things throughout our careers in an academic educational environment, not like, I own a store and, I have a budget. That's great experience. But to do that in education, to understand the trade-offs, there's a lot of chatter about the board did this, the board did that, the school's doing that. It's all about trade-offs. I would love it if we had money and paid teacher and students graduated at the rate we want them to. But things change and constraints are put in place. And so having 3 experienced educational professionals that have made decisions and understand, yes, I would love to put money towards this, but I also have to fix an air conditioner or pay a bus driver or do things that are part of our business as a school district. We understand those, and we don't take it as, because you didn't give that extra $1 to a teacher, that means you hate teachers. No, that means we want to make sure the kids get to school in the bus, and so I got to fix the buses and pay a bus driver. That's part of running this. And the board, as an unpaid, non-qualified position, isn't running the day-to-day business. That's the superintendent's job. But to add our experience and expertise absolutely makes Sharkey, Lewis, Pittinsky the most experienced choice for this board.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Best of luck in the upcoming election. Please go learn more about Mike Sharkey at Sharkey for SUSD. That's SHARKEY, 4 SUSD.com. As with all the other candidates, you can go into the link of the description of this episode to click right on it. You can also check us out on YouTube to see this video episode as well. Thank you so much. Please do your due diligence and go vote. Continue to do your research. This is about our kids, and you will be affected by the choices.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back with a calendar of events. When it comes to protecting you, your family, and all your assets, you need to have someone that you can trust, and that's Jeremy Mueller of State Farm Insurance. Jeremy Mueller has lived in Scottsdale his whole life. How can anyone else know your needs more than someone who's been here and seen it all? Jeremy and his team are always ranked in the top % at State Farm. He cares, he's knowledgeable, and most importantly, he's always available. Don't believe me? Give him a call at 480-515-5223 or find him at jeremymueller.com. All right, well, go ahead and get your stomachs ready. Put on those sweatpants because it is food festival time here in Scottsdale. Starting with the 9th year of the Italian Festival happening at the Scottsdale waterfront. It's October 19th and 20th, and there'll be delicious food, great wine, amazing dancing and food. It's 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, so go check it out. If that's not your jam, how about Taco Festival at Salt River Fields? This always brings a huge crowd. So tacos and tequila are the name of the game, and it's happening as well Saturday and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Admission starts at $15. Be sure to ride share so you can just roll home full of good food. I mean, come on. And lots of different tequila tastings for margaritas as well. But don't forget, the Polo Party is right around the corner, and its 13th year. The Polo Party at Westworld is sure to be a great day. So go ahead and get your tickets now so you can, and if you haven't listened, go listen to the episode from a couple weeks ago where you can learn more about it. There's the Pawtastic Fashion Show, lots of amazing events, huge concert scene till 11 p.m., and of course, great food and champagne. So go check it out. You'll see me there. Have a wonderful week, Scottsdale. Keep vibing, and I'll see you around town.